Welcome, everyone. My name is Kathy Nickham, the Education Director for the DPC Ed Center, and I welcome you to our August webinar on getting a good night's sleep. As a reminder, all your lines are muted, and throughout the webinar, you can type questions in the chat box, and we'll answer as many as we can at the end of the program. Then, within a week, the webinar recording and the slides will be posted on our website. And if you registered for the webinar, you'll get a notice of when they're available. We also encourage you to complete the brief feedback form at the end of the program to share your opinions and suggestions for future programs and future articles for our newsletter. It's my pleasure today to introduce our two speakers. We have Tricia McCarley, who is a nurse, and Felicia Speed, who is a social worker. Both of them are employed by Fresenius Kidney Care, whom we would like to thank for helping us make this webinar a reality. So we appreciate the Fresenius Kidney Care for being involved with us in this program. Tricia is a nurse and is the Vice President of Strategic Quality Operations at Fresenius Kidney Care. She develops, evaluates, and implements strategic initiatives to ensure that patients receive quality care. Tricia also has more than 45 years' experience in nephrology clinical practice. She lives in Nashville, Tennessee, and enjoys spending time with her grandchildren, and I bet her new puppy as well. And I think, or maybe once the puppy gets a little bit older, she'll enjoy it a little bit more. And Felicia, the social worker joining us today, is the Vice President of Social Work Services for Fresenius Kidney Care. She provides oversight and guidance to social workers across the country. Felicia has been a dialysis social worker in various capacities for 20 years. She's dedicated her career to addressing psychosocial barriers among dialysis patients and improving their quality of life. At this point, I'm going to turn the program over to Felicia and Tricia. And Felicia, I think you're going to start, so I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you so much, Kathy, and everyone for joining us today. We are extremely excited to talk about such an important topic that whether you're on dialysis or not, you can be impacted by your sleep. So today, we would just like to address the importance of sleep quality among ESKD patients, also review the root causes of sleep disturbance among ESKD patients, as well as discuss clinical and practical ways to improve sleep disturbance. As we start the conversation, let's just think about how long do we sleep? You know, while we're sleeping, there's so many things that are going on that we may not be aware of, because although we may be unconscious, our brains and our body's functions are still very active. Sleep is a complex biological process that helps you process new information, stay healthy, and feel rested. So during sleep, your brain cycles through 5 stages, 1, 2, 3, 4, and a rapid eye movement. And I'm sure several of you have heard of REM sleep as well. Different things happen during each stage, and I'm not going to bore you with all those, first of all, because I don't think I even know them all. But for example, you have a different pattern of brain waves for each one. And your breathing, heart, and temperature may be slower or faster in some stages. So certain phases of sleep help you feel rested and energetic the next day. Some stages give your heart and vascular system a rest, which I think is extremely important for ESKD patients, as well as it also helps repair of cells and tissues in adults. And it keeps us from getting sick, or can help you get better when you are sick by creating more hormones that help the immune system fight various infections. Now that just makes so much sense, that last one. That's why when I was young, every time I was sick, they would go tell me lay down. And I was like, why I gotta lay down? Because your body needs to be able to create those hormones that help our immune system fight infections. So as patients receiving chronic hemodialysis generally have a heavy symptom distress, which could contribute to the disturbed sleep and impaired quality of life as well. So if you could, in the chat, either whether you're a patient or not, what I would love for you to do is put in the chat exactly how many hours do you typically sleep each day. So it says that for good sleep quality, we should actually sleep 7 to 8 hours a day as adults ages 18 or older. So I see between 8 and 9. I see typically 5 to 6. Do we include naps? No, do not include naps, because actually that's one of the good things to do. It is important to have naps, but not have too many, because it affects your sleep at night. So don't include naps, Michelle. Okay, so 5 to 7, 5 to 6. Okay, so typically some of us sleep between 5 to 7, and then we have those that are, they're our prime people that get 7 to 8. I can't wait to hear how many Tricia actually gets. But I know sleep is important to her, even though she may not get it. How many do you get, Tricia?
Oh, goodness, I have a new puppy, so don't even ask.
So, we just
not good
about
right
5?
now.
About 5 or 6?
Yeah, about 5. Yes.
Okay. So those who are falling in the 5 or 6 range, or even in the 7 range, I think that is why you're here today. So even Tricia, who's doing this presentation, needs this presentation right now. Because when you have good sleep quality, it affects your quality of life, right? It affects your brain function. It allows you to be able to think clearly, to be able to concentrate. It affects us emotionally, right? It affects how we feel emotionally. You may have a tendency, if you're not getting enough sleep, you may find yourself being more agitated, more irritated. You may find yourself being a little bit more quick-tempered, or you may find that you're having symptoms of depression where you may feel very down or very fatigued, and having that exhaustion and not having the energy to be able to carry out some of those daily tasks. So it affects our performance and our safety. Think about if you're not getting good sleep and you're having to drive, a long way. If you're having to drive more than 30 minutes. And I'm sure we've all had that experience where we're behind the wheel and our eyes are burning and we're having to let down the windows. But then it also affects our decision making and our judgment, right? And so we know that as ESKD patients, it is extremely important to make good decisions every day. With the strict dietary regimen alone, it requires so much thought. To have to think about everything that you put in your mouth. You have to think about your medication management. And so because there's so many things to manage just with dialysis and just with being an ESKD patient, and then having to think about all the other things going on in your life, whether it's taking care of a spouse or taking care of our parents or children, whatever it may be, it affects their decisions that have to be made. And so have you ever just had that brain fog where you just couldn't seem to make a decision between chicken and steak? Like, I can't figure out which one I want to do. If you get too many choices, you find yourself being flustered and frustrated. So then that goes back to our emotional well-being. All of those things could be contributed to sleep quality. Are we getting enough sleep? But there's more to sleep quality than just the number of hours. So when we're talking about sleep quality, there's a way to actually calculate sleep quality. Now, I'm not asking us to calculate it, but I do want us to think about what all the sleep quality means. It's a measurement of how well you're sleeping. In other words, whether your sleep is restful and restorative. Because remember, sleep is not about just going to bed because I'm tired. it is just as important to have good sleep quality as it is to have good quality when we're awake, right? It's just as important to make sure that it's like making sure we take our medications. We also have to make sure that we're getting good sleep. So let's first talk about sleep latency. Sleep latency is how long it takes you to fall asleep, right? So if you're laying there and your mind is just running and it's drifting off within, now if your mind is running, that means your sleep latency is very low, because most people drift off within about 30 minutes or less. And that is deemed good quality sleep. If you lay in the bed, as soon as you go to bed, if you're going to bed at 9, and by 9:30 you are out of here, it doesn't matter what's on TV or what book you're reading, you're turning over, then that's good quality sleep. But if after an hour you're still laying there, after 2 hours your mind is still running, then that's not good quality sleep. That's impacting your sleep quality. Then there's something called sleep waking. And sleep waking is the measure of how often you wake up during the night. Frequent wakefulness at night can disrupt your sleep cycle and reduce your sleep quality. So waking up once or not at all suggests that you have good sleep quality. Now, most of us wake up at least once, and I'm noticing as I get older, yes, I'm transitioning into another phase of life, I'm going to get up at least once. Even if I don't go to the restaurant, I'm just getting up. I have no idea. My eyes just open up, but then within about 15 minutes, I'm drifting right back off, right? But what happens when that's happening every hour or every 2 hours? Then that means that you have an issue with sleep waking, right? So we covered sleep latency, and sleep latency is related to how long it takes you to fall asleep. Then you have sleep waking. How often are you waking up during the night? Then there's one called wakefulness. Now you would think, now what's the difference between sleep waking and wakefulness? Well, it's how many minutes you spend awake during the night after you first go to sleep. So remember I said, I generally go to sleep within 15 minutes. That's pretty good, because people with good sleep quality have about 20 minutes or less of wakefulness. That means that once I do wake up, it doesn't take me a long time to go back. But if you wake up in the middle of the night and you're still awake after 30 minutes and it's going into an hour and you're staring at the clock saying, if I don't go to sleep by 3 a.m., it's going to be rough. If I don't go to sleep by 4 a.m., it's going to be rough. Then you have a problem with wakefulness, and that's affecting your sleep quality. Lastly, sleep efficiency. Sleep efficiency is the amount of time you spend actually sleeping while in bed. And so this measurement should ideally be about 85% or more for optimal health benefits. That means how long are you laying there in the bed and actually sleeping? Now, I know some of us just lay in the bed just to watch TV, especially if I'm going through a series on Netflix, right? But I do understand that some of us are just waking up and laying there for hours at a time. And so that period of time that you're just laying in bed and even after you do wake up, you're so exhausted that you're just still laying there, that impacts your sleep efficiency. So it's the amount of time that you're actually sleeping while in bed. So you may be in the bed for 8 hours. If you're only getting 4 hours of sleep during that 8-hour period, or like some of you said, I sleep 5 hours, right? That was Celeste. So let's say she sleeps about 5 to 7 hours. So let's say she slept 6 hours. She was in a bed for 6 hours. But if she only slept for 3 or 3.5, then that means she didn't have good sleep efficiency. So you have sleep latency, which is how long it takes you to fall asleep. You have sleep waking, which is how often during the night you're waking up. And then you have wakefulness, which is how long are you staying awake when you do wake up. And then sleep efficiency is how long are you in bed actually sleeping. All of these things impact your sleep quality. So the next time someone asks you, are you getting good sleep? Don't just think about the number of hours. You have to think about all these other components as well that impacts your sleep quality as a whole. So now I'm going to turn it over to Patricia. I call her Tricia.
Okay. Thanks, Felicia. So you're not alone as a kidney patient, either on dialysis or with kidney disease. It's a very, very common medical complaint. So we all have issues with sleep. But as a dialysis patient, there does seem to be an increased prevalence in our group. And as Felicia was saying, it's really important as a clinician for us to understand what's going on. What about the quality of your sleep? And so are you having trouble with onset? You can't get to sleep? Are you sleepy during the day? You think you're sleeping good at night, but you're overcome by daytime sleepiness? Are you waking up early in the morning? Or do you wake up, do you sleep, do you have decreased sleep quality because it's interrupted? And that's kind of what I have lately, and you can kind of tell by the way I'm talking that I haven't had much sleep lately because I've had a puppy. So as a clinician, I would be addressing me in a different way than if I didn't have a new puppy. So everything that you're bringing to the clinician, and I'm a nurse practitioner, so that's why I'm talking about this evaluation and assessment, everything you can tell your clinician about your sleep quality and things that are affecting your sleep will be helpful in them helping you address it. So one of the important things is really to get a sleep history or sleep diary. And so on the next slide, you'll see, do we advance the slides? Okay, sorry about that. Oh, sorry, I'll go back. Here's an example of a couple of sleep diaries. And they ask details of each night of sleep. Sometimes they're over a week or 2 weeks. How long, what time did you go to bed? How long did it take you to fall asleep? When did you wake up? How did you feel when you wake up? Again, this sleep history is very important to your clinician to help improve your sleep quality. So why do patients on dialysis, or patients in general, but mostly patients on dialysis is what we're going to address here, have trouble sleeping? So there can be medical conditions that contribute to that, and we're going to talk a little bit about each one of these. And then there can be other causes, and Felicia's going to address those. So let's just start with our medical factors. So just being a patient on dialysis contributes to your sleep. Sleep issues are related to kidney failure and buildup of waste products, anemia, iron deficiency, calcium imbalance, pruritus. All of these result from kidney failure and can cause insomnia. And as Rochelle was talking about before we started the webinar, post-treatment symptoms. She was having cramping, and that was interfering with her sleep. So that's an important thing to bring to your clinician if you're having any post-treatment symptoms, so they can understand if that's causing your sleep disturbance. If you're a home dialysis patient, the #1 cause of patients stopping home dialysis and going in-center is because they have alarms. So bringing those alarms and the fact that you're not getting good sleep to your home nurse is really critical, so they can address that and help you with your sleep. So how do we optimize things and help you with your sleep? Well, certainly being a patient on dialysis, we want to be sure that we have good fluid removal, good waste product, but not too much fluid removal where you may be causing cramps, just the right amount. We want to be sure that your anemia and iron are managed, and also that your bone and mineral disease is managed appropriately. And as I said, just being sure those alarms at night are addressed is really important. So another metabolic, another comorbid condition that can occur for patients on dialysis at a little bit higher rate is called restless leg syndrome. If any of you have had this, I have it a bit myself, so I know the feeling. It's a very unpleasant sensation in your legs, and sometimes it can be in your arms, and it's accompanied by an urge to move them. So you feel like, gosh, if I move my legs or arms, then this feeling I have is not quite as intense. It is associated with difficulty falling asleep and poor sleep quality. Really don't know why it occurs. It is increased in patients with kidney disease, the increased prevalence. It can be linked to anemia, kidney disease, diabetes, and also MS. Other medications that you may be taking may be causing it, and it also can be exacerbated by caffeine, alcohol, or nicotine. Again, symptoms may improve with exercise, better dialysis, treatment of anemia, and also certain medications can help with restless leg syndrome. Sleep apnea is a medical disorder where a patient stops breathing during dialysis. And this is, as Felicia was talking about, the phases of sleep. This really interferes with your REM sleep. And the signs and symptoms, if you have a partner or your partner is listening to you as you snore a lot, they can actually witness that you stop breathing at night while you're sleeping. You may have a morning headache. And one of the really telltale signs is daytime sleepiness. You don't notice that you're not sleeping. You think you're sleeping and having a very restful night, but you're so sleepy during the day. It's just overwhelming, and it leads to a poor concentration during the day. For patients on dialysis and patients in general, it is associated with increased risk of cardiovascular disease progression, and we know that's a big comorbid condition in our patients, so it's very important that we address sleep apnea. The way to identify if you have it is to do a sleep study. And I would just recommend, if anybody feels like they're having a whole lot of daytime sleepiness, you talk to your clinician about it. You get that sleep study so it can be addressed. It really can change your quality of life. My husband has sleep apnea. He's had it for 20 years. He uses the continuous positive airway pressure where you're pumping air into your airway, so if it accidentally closes during the night, it shoots it open. And he even takes a nap with his CPAP machine because he needs that good REM sleep to think. There's also appliances that reposition the jaw, and you could have surgery. And then there's, I didn't mention it earlier, there are two types of sleep apnea, obstructive and central. Obstructive is where your airway closes, so you're trying to address that with the CPAP appliance or surgery. And then central is where you lose the drive to, respiratory drive to breathe, and so that is usually treated with medications. And then finally, the last comorbid condition, which is pretty common cause of sleep, and it's not just in patients on dialysis, really all patients, can be pain. And your pain can be GI, it could be a headache, it could be because you were lifting something last night and all your muscles hurt. It can be neuropathic because you maybe have diabetes and you have some neuropathic pain. So there can be many, many reasons for pain. And typically, again, that's just telling the provider that you have some new pain. They'll be able, hopefully, to give you some treatment to manage that pain, and hopefully that will really improve your sleep. So now Felicia is going to talk to us a little bit about the other causes of insomnia and sleep deprivation in our patients.
Thank you so much. And so when we think about some of the things that were listed on the previous slide, one of them, you know, all of these things can contribute to that, but before we start talking about the side effects of sleep deprivation, I just want to point out that when you know, outside of the physical things that could contribute to sleep quality, it could also be stress. In the social work world or counseling world, we use the word rumination. And rumination is when you are continuously having the same thoughts over and over again. It's like having a hamster on the wheel, and it just keeps going over and over. So let's say you are anticipating a home therapy visit, or you're anticipating a dialysis visit or your dialysis treatment, that anticipation of, am I going to cramp today? Am I going to cramp today? Am I going to cramp tomorrow? And so if that thought continues on that hamster wheel, it can create some stressors for you. Or let's say you're stressed about your finances, or stressed about, your bills, or stressed about your family issues. And so when you wake up, remember I talked about that wakefulness, that sleep wakefulness, and when you're waking up and you're staying awake for long periods of time, often it's because a hamster has gotten on that wheel. There's a thought that has started, and once it starts, it triggers more thoughts. And before you know it, you have a whole marathon of hamsters running around in your head of all these thoughts, and that can contribute to sleep deprivation, as well as an irregular sleep schedule, which is simply when you're not going to sleep the same time. So like several of you told me how long you sleep, but what would have been even more interesting is what time do you go? Do you have a tendency to go the same time each night? Because that creates a sleep cycle. And so it's really important. And when I talk about the strategies for better sleep, I'll talk about how it's important for you to go to sleep the same time. So when you have an irregular sleep schedule, when, you're getting home different times each night, or, so some days you go to sleep at 10 and other days you go to sleep at 9, at 8, and other days you go to sleep at midnight, then you don't have a good sleep cycle. And then it's your sleep environment, right? We don't ever really think about it, but what's in your room? I know sometimes we got all this exercise equipment that we never use. We just use it to hang stuff on. That's in your sleep environment, having books everywhere, computers and laptops. If you have all those things in your sleep environment, then your body doesn't know this is the place that I get rest, because you have all these things that require mental stimulation. And also if you have issues with symptoms of anxiety, where you may have panic attacks or shortness of breath, or you just may, have those random thoughts that I was talking about, or having symptoms of depression as well, where you wake up and you feel extremely, down or apathetic, then that can impact your sleep, as well as other mental health disorders as well. And so when you're having all of these things, whether it's physical, the things that Tricia shared, or the things from a psychosocial perspective that I shared, when you have sleep deprivation, it can lead to trouble, difficulty with learning. And so when we are being educated continuously, when education is continuously being given in a dialysis setting, it can be very hard to learn, very difficult to focus, right? And so that makes sense why you may not remember everything that's being communicated to you. It's not mainly just because we are getting older, but also just because we may not have had good sleep. So it's difficult for us to learn. And then it's very difficult to focus. So you may even have difficulty listening to us today, because you may have difficulty focusing because of the sleep deprivation. So you find yourself moving from one thing to another, and you can't seem to finish a task. That's that difficulty in focusing, and finding yourself more reactive to situations that you usually will be okay with. Like if someone left the dishes in the sink, you usually wouldn't care, but today is getting on your nerves. That can come from that sleep deprivation. And again, you experience that frustration, whether it's the people, driving, that don't seem to be driving well, so your road rage has went from a 5 to a 9, a 5 to a 10 very quickly, or you're just experiencing frustration with people that typically may get on your nerves a little bit, but now it seems to be even more heightened. All of that can be contributed to sleep deprivation. And so when we think about, all of the various things that can contribute to sleep quality, whether it's physical, from insomnia to those to restless leg syndrome and sleep apnea, and pain. Pain is huge, and pain also affects us emotionally and mentally as well. So all of those things combined, impact that quality of sleep. But I do not want you to lose hope. There are some strategies. First, I do encourage you to talk to your healthcare provider, to your physician, also if you have a social worker, let them know that you're having difficulty of sleep so they can evaluate it a little bit more and be able to communicate that back, help you communicate with your healthcare provider as well. But there are some strategies for better sleep quality. One, address those comorbid conditions. You know, making sure that you look at the medications that are being taken. And, as I stated, have a sleep schedule. I know I'm still working on it after about 5 years of learning this, but a sleep schedule is helpful. If you go to sleep the same time every night, let's say you set at 9:30, your eyes are closed, guess what will happen? If you try to watch a movie at 9 p.m., it will not happen, because by 9:30, your body is like, listen, this is what time we go to sleep. We don't care what's on TV. If you try to stay too late at a party, nothing's happening. You're shutting down because you have a sleep schedule. And then give yourself that quiet time before you actually go to sleep. Because once you kind of shut things down, your body knows, oh, we're starting to settle down so we can get some rest. Trish, you may want to go on mute. I don't know if you are. And then avoid heavy meals before bedtime. And I know sometimes that's difficult, especially if we get in really late. But if you get in late, you may want to make an adjustment to what you're going to eat. No matter how hungry you may be at the moment, it's going to come back to get you, because you'll start to have heartburn and indigestion, and those things are going to keep us up at night. Also, they actually encourage you not to avoid nicotine and caffeine after 3 p.m. Now, I know that's difficult for some, but it really is helpful, because that's a stimulant, and it's stimulating you, and your body it's really hard for your body to begin to get into that restful state with receiving something that's creating that stimuli. Then increase physical activity. And when they're talking about increasing physical activity, I'm not saying you need to go and run, right? Because Felicia is not a runner. But I am learning to walk a little bit more. And I even learned how to do chair exercises. There are things that we can do to make sure we're having some physical activity. You know, there's wonderful things that you can find on YouTube, believe it or not. That's like my go-to. There's chair yoga, you know, because I can't do the regular yoga, so I do the chair yoga. There are things that we can do to be able to still increase that physical activity, even if we may have some physical things that may keep us from being as active as we would like. And as I've talked about, you know, that sleep environment, creating a relaxing space. What can I do in my space to let my body know, to let my mind know that this is the place that I rest, right? Whether I want to paint the walls if I have the ability to do so, or get someone to paint them a different color, you know, maybe get a new comforter, you know, find out which colors, you know, are more calming. Those are things that you can do to create a more relaxing space. Now, some people love to have things everywhere and they can sleep just fine. If that works for you, if that's a relaxing space for you, leave it that way. But for others, they want to have everything in its place. It's whatever works for you. Then having relaxation techniques, whether there's wonderful apps that you can use on the phone. There's one called Relaxing Melodies that I use personally. It's called Relaxing Melodies, and they're free ones because I'm big about free, but you can select the different melodies that you want to hear, whether you want to hear the ocean or you want to hear rain. You even get to pick what kind of rain, whether you want it to be stormy rain or you just want to hear a mist or you want to hear the rain hitting against the window. You can create whatever sound, multiple sounds at one time, whether you want to hear the crickets or you want to hear birds, to create that relaxing melody. But there's also, within that app, you can select to hear someone talk you through relaxation of how to tighten your muscles and release them so that your body can begin to relax. Then increase sunlight exposure. Believe it or not, it is so important for myself because now I'm working from home. I'm having to learn how to go outside periodically, leave the room and get some sunlight, open up my blinds I know sometimes, especially I live in the South, so we typically want to keep our blinds and everything closed because we're trying to keep the heat out and trying to keep the air condition in. But I also understand that I need the sunlight. Sunlight is helpful because then when it's time for me to go to sleep, when it's time for us to rest, then when we see things calming down and there's no light, then our body knows it's time to rest. But if it's dark all day, every day, then your body doesn't know the difference. It doesn't know the time it needs to be active and the time it needs to rest. And lastly, reduce the blue light exposure in the evening. So what's the blue light exposure? That's our TVs, that's our tablets, our iPads, our things that we're reading, and our phones. There are many people that, we don't really post anything on Facebook or social media, but we love to stalk others. So we have a tendency just to continuously do that, or playing games. And the games are great. They're a great way to be able to relax. But then you need to begin to reduce it, where there's a certain time frame that you're going to put the phone away, put it on Do Not Disturb, and you're going to cut your TV off, because that blue light exposure stimulates your mind and keeps you from being able to relax, so that your body knows, okay, now it's time for us to relax and shut down. Because remember, when you're looking at social media, oftentimes you can't control what you're going to see next. You'll go from a very great inspirational quote to, some tragedy that has occurred, or something has happened. And so all of those things, or someone's angry, right? And so all of those things create a lot of mental stimuli. It can sometimes even create stress, frustration, depression, just by what you see on social media. So that's why it's very important that we reduce that before we go to sleep. You want to kind of have a cutoff time so that you can have more time just to rest and relax. So what I would love for you to do now is that if you could place in the chat, which of these strategies do you think that you would like to implement to improve your sleep quality? Even if you have the best sleep quality, what is one thing you could implement to actually make it better? Increase physical activity, yes. Reduce those heavy meals. Oh, somebody heard me. Yes, reduce the blue light exposure. You saw I hung out there for a minute, right? So I knew that was a big one for a lot of people. No more social media before bed. Thank you. I know we love it. I know it's like watching TV, but it can stress you out. And you didn't even know it was going to happen, because you will lay there start thinking about what you just saw, right? Turn that TV off. Yes. You can set a timer on the TV that it just cuts off, Now, don't let it cut off right at the end of the show when you find out who actually did it. But you want to make sure that 5 after is going to cut off. And using some of those relaxation techniques. There's great apps. And there also, I found some, once again, don't mean to be a promoter of YouTube, but it works for me, and oftentimes it's free. But there's great sounds and piano music, guitar music, jazz, classical, whatever it is, that if you feel like you need to hear something in the background, but you don't want anything that's going to stimulate you, and if you wake up, something that's going to keep you calm, it's really important to try to have something playing sometimes if you need it. Some people need complete silence where they got to put in earplugs and put on a mask. I'm one of those people that need to hear something. So yes, use relaxation, turn that TV off, reduce that social media, that blue light exposure, and increase that physical activity. And yes, you can also avoid those heavy meals before bedtime. I know they're good, but we've got to find a better way. So make sure you talk to your dietitian about what you can eat differently if you find yourself getting home late because you're hungry and you want to eat, but what can you eat that may be filling but won't cause so much indigestion and heartburn as well? So these are all some great strategies that I hope that you can implement, and I hope that this presentation was beneficial to you and that you learned something that you can take back as well. There are several references that are here as well that we pulled from. We're not as smart as we sound sometimes, so we did use some evidence-based information to be able to prepare this presentation for you. And so now we just ask that if you have any questions, please use the chat box, and we and Tricia come off mute now, and we'll gladly answer any questions that you may have if you place them in the chat. Thank you so much.
And Felicia, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay.
Any questions?
Looks like we have, this is Kathy, it looks like we have somebody typing a question. Oh, there it is.
Oh, what was the name of the phone app? It was called, I'm going to put it in the chat as well. I think I can do it. It's called Relaxing Melodies.
My sister's here, and she was telling me about there's a meditation one, and that's what she listens to. And it turns itself off. I don't know the name of it, unfortunately. I'm one of those that's got to be quiet and no light.
Right. They even have one that has the white noise. Some people like the white noise. But I think Relaxing Melodies give you the white noise as well. And then there's also Calm. That one, they have a lot that can talk you through. Yeah, thank you, Robin. Yes. Calm is really good. It provides a lot of nice sounds as well.
This is Kathy again with Hello. Doing some typing in their questions or comments. One of the things that I had heard about was going out early in the morning when you get up, because it helps set your body rhythms or your circadian rhythms. Could you talk a little bit about body rhythms?
I have to give that one to Tricia. I'm not as familiar with the body rhythm.
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm not, people having their bodies usually have it sort of goes with one of the things you were saying earlier, that we have some people who are morning people or night people, and their body sort of chooses for them. And the light cycle.
I don't want to misspeak, so I would have to do a little bit more studying to answer that. But I think you're kind of hitting on it by just saying if you're a morning person or a night person, that's probably part of your biological and makeup of you. So listen to your body and do what it's telling you to do.
Right. Okay.
So Robin also made a recommendation for if you Google migraine music, they can provide you one for white noise. And then there's one called Noisely that was recommended as well. It's an app that you can download as well. Those who have smartphones, there's always something that you can find. They create an app for everything, it feels like.
Well, of course, Google has some stuff about circadian rhythms. It's your natural cycle of physical, mental, and behavioral changes that the body goes through, and it's very affected by light and dark. So that's probably a lot of the reasons Felicia was saying, the blue light. I'm right now, I'm up northern U.S. where it gets light later. So if I go to sleep, I'm really affected by the light. And that must be my circadian rhythm. So I wear a mask just so the light's not bothering me. Yeah. So there you go.
Okay. Yeah, so Robin says that they have been going outside as soon as they wake up to walk and dimming the lights, no blue light for half an hour before bed, and they said it really helps. So thank you, Robin, for sharing. I see some other people typing, so I'm just going to pause for a second. But yeah, I do think it's important just to be very cognizant of what works for you. And, even when I was talking about having thoughts and your mind is running, sometimes it's helpful just to have a notepad nearby, or you can put it in your phone if you want to pick it up and just, type out whatever is in your mind or write out what you're thinking. And let's say it's something, a conversation you need to have, and you just say, you write it out. And then you say, I'll call that person tomorrow, or I'll take care of that tomorrow. Sometimes if you just write the thought out that's running on that wheel, then it kind of gets that out of your head so that you can rest. And by simply saying, I'll take care of it tomorrow, I'll talk to such and such tomorrow, then you're able to take that into the next day. And at the present moment, you can allow yourself to rest. So then also Brian says, as an older person, you make several bathroom trips during the night, and if I'm on home dialysis, do I have to unhook the machine, or is there a better suggestion? I'm not on dialysis yet, but this may be in the near future. Any suggestions? So I'll leave that one to Tricia about can he unhook the machine when he's going to the bathroom with the several trips at night?
So you're on PD? Peritoneal dialysis.
He hasn't started yet.
Yeah. You'll have a long enough lead probably, so that helps. I think they'll work those details out with you. It's not a real tight. You'll be able to walk around and do things.
It's pretty long.
Yeah,
pretty long
lead. Yeah.
And I see Celeste typing, so I wanted to give her a moment. Okay. Oh, she's asking others, is anyone on, take something for restless leg, but it causes high blood pressure, or any of y'all on a restless leg meds that would, that would not cause high blood pressure. So I'm sure Trish would say, if you feel that that's happening, you may want to speak to your welcome, Celeste, that would not do, are there any meds that would not cause high blood pressure? And I'm sure that Trish will probably say, speak to your doctor and see if they have something. There are several things out there, so hopefully there's something that can help with that so that you don't have to have the high blood pressure and restless leg. Trying to work on one and then having issues with the other.
Yeah, and Celeste, I kind of have restless legs, and I know the one thing that really helps me is physical activity, just walking. So days when I don't have any physical activity, they're just crazy, my legs. But if I can get in a walk, that really is helpful to me. And then don't forget that there's the caffeine and the other medications that may be causing it. And you may be taking some medications that are causing restless legs. So get with your provider and be sure they understand you have RLS, and have them do a thorough evaluation so they can really figure out the why. And I just want to reinforce just being sure your provider knows. It is important to talk to your social worker, but there's a lot of medical and physical reasons that can easily be fixed. And so it's not all psychosocial. And so let them explore things that perhaps you think are no big deal. Not thinking it's, I'm just, I've got all these stresses. Just be sure there's nothing, medically or physically that can't be fixed. Rule those out too. Yeah.
I see someone typing, so I just want to give them a chance to respond as well, to be able to ask a question or a comment.
Right, and while Rachel is typing, I want to thank both of you for sharing with us today and enlightening us on some really, kind of what's going on with sleep, as well as some good tips for all of us to kind of start practicing tonight as we end our day. So thank you so much for all the information that you both have shared with us today. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and thanks to the participants. You always learn something when I'm on a call, and so I'm going to go do a little more studying about circadian rhythms. So thank you for that question and for challenging me. And next time Felicia and I talk about sleep, I think we'll be talking about circadian rhythms.
I think so too.
I think you were talking about it without knowing it, perhaps, indirectly.
Yeah, I think we were. I think Felicia really talked about the whole cycle of your body.
I had no idea I didn't know that was the name of it. So now I can use a big word and feel real smart.
Right. And I just saw you say the note about the, not having meals late at night. I didn't see the word snack up there, but I know that snacks can interfere with those late evening snacks sometimes. They can just really mess with sleep too. It's like, darn.
Yeah,
because
that's one of the things.
Your body's trying to digest food and try to rest at the same time. And it already has goals for while you're asleep, so you're adding more to it. So that's why it's not really helpful to have lots of snacks, even though we all do it, I'm sure.
Right. Tricia, did you have something else that you?
No, I was just going to say you may, like my husband, it doesn't seem to bother him to eat late at night, and it bothers me. So we have a bit of a conflict on when we eat dinner. But I just if it's late, I just don't eat as much. I find those things to eat before dinner, and then, you just have to kind of adjust sometimes with whatever. And you'll go out late with friends perhaps. And so you just have to kind of adjust, knowing what's right for you and your sleep, kind of being sensitive to all those things. So.
Right. And
yeah.
Rachel, thank you for your comment about sleepy time tea. There are, and as you're mentioning with the tea, there's also different foods that help one sleep. The warm milk, my understanding is that really does help. And I've been reading a book on food and sleep, and apparently there's some various foods that if you eat, they supposedly help you sleep at night. So
what you're pointing out is find what's right for you.
Yeah,
what helps you sleep, right?
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think so. Well, thank you both again.
Thank you.
For your presentation, and I certainly want to thank all the participants for sharing this hour with us. And please complete the feedback form that will come up on your screen at the end, and join us next month as we talk about the COVID-19 vaccines on September 23rd. And have a good month. And if people have additional questions, you can always email us at the Ed Center, and we'll be glad to find the answers or to talk to Tricia or Felicia more. So thank you, everyone. And again, Tricia, Felicia, thank you both so much.
Thank you for asking us.
Take care. Bye-bye.